Good evening, everyone. I am Rebecca Hawthorne, President of the League of Women Voters, Wayzata-Plymouth area. I'd like to welcome our candidates, our audience, and our viewers on behalf of the League of Women Voters, Wayzata-Plymouth area, and our co-host, the League of Women Voters, South Tonka. The League of Women Voters is a 104-year-old volunteer, nonpartisan organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. It is our purpose in sponsoring forums such as this to provide you with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss face-to-face the issues that are important to you. I ask you at this point to please silence your electronic devices. And now I'd like to introduce your moderator for this evening's forum, William Johnson of Plymouth, and the League of Women Voters Wayzata-Plymouth area member.
Good evening. Tonight's forum is provided to give you the opportunity to learn about the candidates running for House District 45A. There's never enough time to cover all the issues in a setting such as this. If you have questions that weren't addressed, feel free to contact or talk to the candidates directly. The League of Women Voters posts complete unedited recordings of its forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting. Only the full unedited recording may be used by other persons and organizations. All right, the rules for this evening's debate forum are as follows. Candidates will be allowed an opening statement with a maximum of 1 minute to state their experience, their platform, and objectives. A question and answer period will follow the opening statement. The answers will be confined to 1 minute unless otherwise designated by the moderator. Questions will be answered in a rotating order. A 15-minute warning will be given by our timekeeper at the end of our 15 seconds. At the end of that 15 seconds, the end of the 15 seconds, you'll also hold up a stop sign, at which point we'd ask you to finish your sentence or your thought. Otherwise, you might be interrupted. The candidates will also be given a 2-minute closing statement. No reference of a personal nature will be tolerated. A person's public record may be examined, but not their character. This forum is made available to encourage the voting public to focus on the issues and not on personalities. We ask that there be no demonstrations in support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that the candidate be allowed their full time to get their points across. The public has been encouraged to submit questions online in advance of this forum. For those in the audience, if you have a question, write it on a 3x5 card that you were given, available from our volunteers, and raise your hand to have it picked up. Audience questions will be taken for the first 30 minutes of the forum. The timekeeper will alert me when 30 minutes has elapsed, and we won't take any additional questions. Questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used. Those that fall in the same general category may be consolidated if they deal with the same subject. The candidates running for House District 45A are Tracey Breazeale and Andrew Myers. All right, we will begin by asking candidates to give introductory remarks, beginning with Tracey Breazeale.
Hi, it's great to see so many of you out there today. I'm Tracey Breazeale. I'm an experienced business executive, a second-term city council member, and a mom of 4. So I know how to work together to get things done. On city council, I've been working with people across the political spectrum on issues that are important to all of us, including things such as zoning ordinances, infrastructure, parks, and more. I bring a common sense, balanced approach to decision making. I graduated from college with degrees in both psychology and economics and went on to get my master's in business administration. So from the beginning, I've always looked at things from both the human side and the business side. My experience in finance and business strategy give me the skills to make decisions using data and really listening to diverse perspectives to develop pragmatic solutions with fewer unintended consequences. I'm running to ensure Minnesota remains a place where people can thrive, our communities are vibrant, and businesses succeed. I look forward to tonight's conversation and earning your support.
All right, thank you. Andrew Myers.
Thank you. I want to say thanks to the league and everybody for being here tonight. So my name's Andrew Myers. I'm a husband, also a father of 4. I'm a small business owner, attorney, been a former city council member, parks chair, planning chair. You know, it's really important that, you know, in the work that we do up here, that we really focus on the priorities of the district. You know, the priorities that I hear at the door are education, affordability, environment, community safety. You know, we need somebody that's really willing to bring people together. You know, I think I have a record of being able to do that. You know, and also somebody that's, you know, in touch with the community. I sit as a board member for the West Tonka Food Shelf, been a volunteer for almost 10 years. We have a great community here. We really come together, we work well together, and hopefully I can continue to serve this community.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll begin by asking the candidates the questions in a rotating order, and you'll each have 1 minute. The question will go first to Mr. Myers, and it's regarding bonding. The 2024 Minnesota legislature was unable to find bipartisan support for an infrastructure bill to fund water treatment plants, roads, bridges, university buildings, and other public works projects. What is your position on funding infrastructure, and what would you do to work across the aisle to enact such legislation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I actually sit on capital investment. I know how important our infrastructure is. You know, I think I was just having the conversation, I think we have close to $100 million worth of requests. You know, I'd be open to really doing a bonding bill every year specifically related to clean water, roads, bridges. The frustration I saw is the priorities down there were for things like, you know, a $750 million state office building, instead of focusing on $750 million that could have gone to local infrastructure. That could have impacted tens of thousands of Minnesotans. It could have been additional funding for Mounds Water Treatment Plant or countless other projects around the state. We need to do a better job of trying to prioritize those things that impact a lot of people instead of, you know, things like a state office building that impact, you know, 134 members.
Thank you. Tracey Breazeale.
Being on City Council in Minnetonka Beach, I know just how important the bonding bills are in terms of getting infrastructure funded. We, like Mound, have had a water treatment issue in Minnetonka Beach where our water, we've got an aging water plant. This is not unique to that community. It's true across our district. We have aging water infrastructure, we have aging roads, and we desperately need help from the state to fund some of these projects. I believe that infrastructure, that one of the primary jobs of the legislator is to be advocating for our communities, making sure that our needs are fully understood in the Capitol, that we're getting on the bonding tours, that we're bringing legislators from St. Paul out to our communities to truly understand what the needs are, and that we are working to make sure that they get on the lists, and then that we work to get the bonding bills passed.
Thank you. All right. Next question regards education, and we'll go first to Tracey Breazeale. Few Minnesota schools have gone unscathed from the effects of inflation, higher than usual salary increases, and lagging state aid. If elected, what would be your view of state education funding and whether to reduce, maintain, or increase it? Tracey Breazeale.
Well, education, I think, is at the forefront of what we should be focused on. Our kids are our future, and there's nothing more important than educating them. In terms of our schools and funding, we have had funding deficits for many, many, many years in terms of our schools. Our teachers have not kept pace, their salaries have not kept pace with inflation. They are not paid enough. Our class sizes are struggling in some districts. We're fortunate in this district. We have very good schools, and they're performing in the top, amongst the top in the state. In terms of funding priorities for the schools, I would advocate that We do need to increase funding. In terms of increases, I would like to see that funding going to programs that have direct impact on our students and on our teachers so that they can focus on the curriculum that they need to teach and on the work that truly is educating our students.
Thank you. Andrew, Mr. Myers.
Yeah, thank you. You know, my sister's a teacher at Westaka. You know, my kids go to Minnetonka. Education's something I hear every day at the door. We need to start listening to the boots on the ground educators. We need to start listening to our principals and superintendents. You know, we passed some bills down there that had a dramatic impact on our schools. It left us with larger class sizes, more mandates that went unfunded. I was proud to chief author a bill with all my superintendents and countless teachers called the Better Together Education Plan. It was about direct, flexible spending, which would mean that it's not a one-size-fits-all. Schools here in Mound and Westaka don't need the same things that Minnetonka schools need. We need to give that flexibility. Schools like Minnetonka under that plan would have gotten 5.3 million more, Westaka 1.3, Orono 1.6, Wayzata 7.7, and that would have probably meant that the 35 teachers that Minnetonka doesn't have anymore, we would have kept those teachers.
Okay, thank you. All right, this next question regards public safety. Many are concerned with crime in our communities. What legislation, if any, would you support regarding public safety? Andrew Myers.
Yeah, so again, public safety, another top topic that I hear at the doors. You know, we have some great law enforcement officers here, first responders out here. Again, you know, I created a 365 initiative, and that initiative is not about public safety on the day of an incident, but it's 365 days a year. And that means supporting our law enforcement 365 and building those programs within our community. We need to continue having long-term funding sources, not these short-term funding sources. So, you know, again, that's something that our communities, our government should be providing public safety 365, and I would continue to support that initiative that we created.
Okay, Tracey Breazeale.
In terms of public safety, we should all feel safe in our homes and our community. In terms of 45A, I've heard directly at city council meetings from our police and firefighters, and they are working very, very hard to keep us safe. I support and appreciate the legislature that was passed this past term that gave direct funding to our local law enforcement officers, and I appreciate the decision on how this money would be spent was left up to the local law enforcement. I think we need to do more of this. I think we need to make sure that we are giving them funding. We need to support the efforts that our responders are making. We need to support them with recruitment. We need to support them with training and retention. I also support making sure that our first responders have access to mental health resources, not just for themselves when they need them, because it is a stressful job, but in particular to help them when they are called to the door with someone else who's struggling.
All right, thank you. All right, this will go first to Tracey Breazeale. If elected, what would your priorities be for using a state budget surplus? I guess that assumes we would have a state budget surplus.
For me, when I think about a budget surplus, I think that a surplus should be spent on one-time items. I believe that we should be using it on as much as we can on projects such as infrastructure, things where we've had a deficit, where spending the money at that time, it will go to solve that problem, and not be used in a way that is going to require tax increases to continue to fund the project. I think that we also, if we have a budget surplus, a portion of the money should be set aside so that when we have deficits in the future, we're not having to increase taxes or fall short on programs that we want to keep funded.
All right, thank you. Andrew Myers.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a budget surplus, we got to find those things that we can invest in, and it has to be an investment. And so if that's, you know, law enforcement for community safety, if that's our schools for investing in our kids and our teachers, you know, if that's for programs for you know, the people that need the most need. But I think we all saw, and again, every day I hear at the door, an $18 billion surplus, you know, and they grew government by 38%, then raise taxes $10 billion. I mean, I think it's time for Minnesotans, or at least I hear at the door, suburban families are paying more and getting less. I mean, it's time to give them some relief. Like my car tab fee bill, it was a great way to balance out the cost of groceries. But what happened? They took that bill and they raised it. Your car's a year older and you're paying more. We've got to find ways to help our seniors, capping property taxes. I think it's probably time that we start investing back into Minnesotans, and that's probably what I would do.
All right, thank you. All right, on this next question, I won't hold you to the timer, so finish your thought on it. The question is, do you support the adoption of a ballot issue to add the ERA to the Minnesota State Constitution? Why or why not? What language should or should not be included? Andrew Myers.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Minnesota in 1973, adopted the ERA. And, as a father of 3 daughters, a brother of 3 older sisters, it's important that we support, the women in our lives. I supported a resolution in 2023 for the ERA. But when it came in 2024, what we saw was some conflict. What we saw was removing of religion and age, which led in the House for me to not support that. But it wasn't just that. It didn't have its way in the Senate. I mean, it didn't even make it to the Senate floor. And I think that demonstrates that it still needs a lot of work. We've got to come together in a bipartisan manner to support that, support, our communities, support the women in our lives, because there's a lot of good. And I think if we work together on that, we can find a ballot initiative that I think 80% of Minnesotans can agree with.
Okay, thank you. Tracey Breazeale.
I support having an ERA question on the ballot. I haven't seen the exact wording of the one that was proposed, so in terms of exact wording, I'm not positive. I do believe that we should have an ERA that makes it clear that all Minnesotans are treated equally and have access to equal rights regardless of their race, their gender, or who they love. I'm in favor of having the right for reproductive health care on the ballot for a state constitutional amendment. I personally don't think that this is an issue that should be up for debate, and depending on who's in the legislature and having it be something that can go back and forth every 2 to 4 years, it's something I believe we need to have decided and have it be an amendment in our Constitution.
All right, thank you. All right, you're back on the clock. Sports gambling bill. Do you support or oppose legalization of mobile sports betting in Minnesota? Please explain your position. Tracey Breazeale.
In terms of mobile sports betting, I have to be honest, this is not an area that I'm overly familiar with. It is an area that, if elected, I would be out talking to people, understanding what are the pros and cons of having mobile betting, what's the rationale for doing it, where are we going to use the additional revenue that comes from it, and what are the potential downfalls, and weigh all of that to arrive at a decision that seems to make the most sense for our community.
Andrew Myers.
Yeah, I know this is something that, Pat Garofalo really wished passed because he's been working on it for a really long time, but, we couldn't get something to the floor. I think, for me, some of the things to consider are, what's the funding for, addiction that may lead to this, and other safeguards that are in place. Another piece is, I remember from the legislature or legislation that, they only provided 11 licenses. I don't know if we should be limiting or providing monopolies on specific things like that. I would like to see it maybe opened up a little bit more. Again, this is something that the legislature is going to have to work together on to get support from both sides of the aisle to accomplish, because, again, we saw in a majority, party, we couldn't get it accomplished.
Thank you. All right, next question relates to childcare. Childcare is critical to our labor markets. What, if anything, should the legislature do regarding access and availability to quality and affordable childcare for working families throughout Minnesota? Mr. Myers.
Yeah, again, this was another topic that near and dear to my heart. I have a 4-year-old, and childcare is really expensive, and access is becoming tougher and tougher. We're having, those options and opportunities closed down. So another initiative that I created was the Building Blocks of Learning. Again, these initiatives come through working with the boots on the ground people in those industries. It raises the dependent care credit to help address the cost, but it also provides an incentives for employers up to $10,000 to give to an employee to pay for those costs. It's a good way to get people back into the market. It's also a good way to have those families that need help paying for it, but it also allows those businesses to invest in their employees and get that tax write-off. So that's one example that I would continue to support in that Building Blocks of Learning.
Okay. Tracey Breazeale.
Childcare has gotten extraordinarily expensive in Minnesota. I was talking to a neighbor last week, a woman who lives in Orono, and she had a brand new baby and a 3-year-old, and she was expressing to me that she was going to be going back to work soon, and the cost of her 2 children going to daycare part-time was going to be $40,000 per year. I don't know what her job is or what her husband's job is, but this is an unbelievable amount of money for somebody to be having to take out of their paycheck to pay for childcare. I think we have a number of things levers that we can pull. We have a need for more childcare workers. We need to make sure that we're doing things to incentivize them for training. We need to be working on creative ways to expand the opportunities and where people can access childcare, potentially have expanding Head Start on college campuses, working with businesses to fund childcare privately, and potentially get tax credits for participating in that arena.
All right, thank you. Next question relates to inflation, and it goes first to Tracey Breazeale. What measures would you support to address the rising living costs experienced by Minnesota residents?
Well, this is something that comes up a lot. Our cost of living have gone up dramatically. There are some levers that we can pull locally. I think that thankfully interest rates came down a little bit today, so hopefully we'll all begin to see that. We're hearing that energy prices are coming down. But there's much that we need to do. A lot of our increases in costs are going for health care as well as childcare. So we've talked a little bit about childcare, that we need to work to bring those costs down. Healthcare, we do need to be doing more to bring down the cost of prescription drugs. And I would like to see a public buy-in option for MinCare. This is an opportunity where people could potentially be getting their health insurance at less cost and save dramatically in that area that's taking a big chunk out of their pocketbooks.
Thank you. Andrew Myers.
Yeah, again, you hear at the doors, even 2 years ago when I was knocking, people talking about the cost of groceries, the cost of insurance, the cost of healthcare. First month in, drafted a bill to help reduce the cost of gas, car tab fees, because I can't fix the cost of groceries, but I can alleviate that budget. Again, level of frustration with that much of a surplus that they raised both of those bills. We have a opportunity for health insurance to continue to keep premiums low, about 20%, because reinsurance is going to be coming up. That's something that we need to support because healthcare costs are really expensive, and Minnesota's had a pretty good model of trying to keep those down. The other piece is property taxes. we've got to look at property taxes. That is impacting so many people in our district and suburban families. These swings of 20, 30%, I hear from people, their wages aren't going up that much. We've got to find better ways to kind of keep it, at bay.
All right, thank you. All right, next question, hot topic, reproductive rights. Reproductive rights remain a hot topic at both the national and state level. What are your views on Minnesota's passage of the legislation protecting reproductive health care decisions and access to care, as well as protecting patients' medical records from prosecution by other states? First to Mr. Myers.
Yeah, again, I'll go back to the conversations I have in our district. 2 years ago, I did 15,000 doors, and we all know that this was a topic that came up a lot. I heard from pro-choice, pro-life voters every single day. Two things I heard in common with them were options and opportunities that were reasonable. That's the approach I take with pretty much everything down there. I have 3 daughters, I have a wife, 3 sisters. My work at the Capitol reflects that I have a bipartisan vote that protects women the entire pregnancy. It's something that we need to continue to look at, and it's something that, at the end of the day, for me, my vote will stand out so people can see it.
Right. Tracey Breazeale.
I think as this decision has been pushed to the state level, it is important who we have in the legislature and how we're making this decision. It's near and dear to my heart. I have a 20-year-old daughter. I certainly want her to have the same freedoms to manage her own health care that I had. I support the PRO Act, and I support the Reproductive Freedom Defense Act. I trust women and their doctors to make the healthcare decisions that are best for them, and I trust them to do that without needing government oversight, deciding whether or not they were close enough to death or their health was endangered enough that they needed to take the actions that they had to take.
All right, thank you. All right, next question is a multiple part question here. It's probably a cognitive test for the moderator. On the November ballot, Minnesotans will be asked to reauthorize or end a constitutional amendment allocating 40% of state lottery proceeds to the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. If you support reauthorization, what environmental issues in District 45 need to be addressed? If you do not support reauthorization, how would you allocate the lottery proceeds differently? And first to Tracey Breazeale.
I 100% support reauthorization of the 40% of the lottery proceeds for the Environmental Natural Resources Fund. In terms of what issues within our district, I think one of the really important issues that we are facing, not just in our district but across the state, is in regards to aquatic invasive species. This is an area that we're seeing it in Lake Minnetonka, we're seeing it in most of our lakes around the state. And some of these funds could be used in a way that would help prevent the spread of aquatic species, both from coming into the state as well as going from lake to lake. We also could use some of the funds in terms of supporting our trails, working towards our making sure that we are providing not only resources within our district, but also protecting our wildlife and wooded areas outside of the district as well.
Thank you. Andrew Myers.
Yeah, I would support it as well. I mean, we all know living in this district, having Lake Minnetonka in your backyard, how important the environment is. We all, again, spend a lot of time at the parks with my kids, funding those opportunities for access to the outdoors, our local parks and trails, protecting our wetlands. It's something that, at the end of the day, though, we got to make sure that we are talking to our locally elected leaders and what they need. Because every city's different. I mean, whoever wins here has to represent 11 cities, and there's a lot of things that we need to address, both from an environmental perspective, and I think, a lot of parks and trails that we can help support with these funds, and, hopeful that this, passes again by even a greater amount.
All right, thank you. All right, next question, we'll go first to Mr. Myers. End-of-life bill, End-of-Life Option Act was proposed in the 2024 legislation that would allow an individual to request medical aid in dying, provided certain requirements are met. Excuse me. Do you support or oppose this legislation? Explain your position. Mr. Myers.
Yeah, so I don't sit on a Health and Human Service Committee, so I did not hear this bill, but, I hosted, over 20 town halls, and at a lot of those we had people from both sides, saying, here's why I support it, here's why I don't. I think this was an opportunity to listen to those people, to respect those situations they had. We can't take away those feelings they have, how it impacts them. But I think we saw at the legislature this was a bill that didn't have legs to go any further. And again, as it currently stands, I think that just needs a lot more work before it's even considered.
All right, thank you. Tracey Breazeale.
In principle, I support people having the choice to die with dignity and to make compassionate choices. I think that the bill, as proposed, my understanding of it is that it does have some pretty stringent requirements that people have to be within the last 6 months of their life. It gives them access to prescription medication. They have to be cognitively able to make their own decisions. And I think I come at this from a personal perspective. I have two parents that both did not have pleasant end-of-life situations. My mom died of ovarian cancer. My dad had long stages of Parkinson's. And to watch my dad in particular have to go through an end-of-life stage where he was essentially starved to death, it made me feel that we treat our animals better than we treat some of our humans at the end of their life. This is something where I would not by any means say this is something that everybody should do, but to me it's about choice, and it's about trusting our seniors to be able to make the choice to, or others who are near the end of their life, to make the choice that's right for them.
Thank you. All right, next question. We'll go first to Tracey Breazeale. In regards to social and racial justice, what legislative policies, if any, will you pursue to address economic disparities in labor force participation, unemployment, and income and poverty levels between Minnesota's white residents and residents of color? Tracey Breazeale.
I think in terms of our people of color and our white residents, our people of poverty and people of more means, I think we really owe it to all of our citizens to try to give everybody the best of our ability, an equal start at life. I think there's a lot that we need to do in terms of making sure that all of our children have equal access to early childhood, preschool and early childhood education to help them get off on a good start. I think it's important that we make sure that we have, for people who aren't going to go on to further education, we have vocational training in the schools, and that we are providing apprenticeship programs for the trades. I am an advocate for making sure that we are really providing livable wages and good career options for all of our people.
Thank you. Andrew Myers.
Yeah, I think ultimately it just comes down to, we live in a community about supporting one another, and it's about the people that need the most help. I'll go back to, again, my work at the food shelf. When our community comes together, we can make a real impact, and it's not always about dollars. It's about time and effort. It's about programs, and it's about listening to people. And it's listening to as many people as we can so that we can make those programs get the most out of them. So to me, it's really focusing on the need of those people. If it's people in our district, if it's people in Minneapolis, if it's people in greater Minnesota, it's really looking at where that need is.
All right, thank you. All right, next question. What legislative measures, if any, would you support regarding housing, home ownership, and rental? Mr. Myers.
Yeah, this is another topic. So I sit on the housing committee. I learned a lot in a short amount of time down there, the impact that we have in housing, the shortage of housing, listening to parents, listening to young people. You hear from young people, maybe I've saved up enough money, but there's the interest rates are too high, even though the 50 basis points may help a little bit. But some of the bills I drafted were an interest rate buy-down bill to help people like that have, saved the money for the down payment, but those interest rates just don't make it accessible for them. Another one was sales tax exemptions on new homes under $465,000. That was the average cost of a house in the suburbs. What it does is it builds inventory that we need, but it also means that material doesn't have a sales tax that then the builder can pass on to those homeowners. We can build that inventory, get people in homes, and then incentivizing some of these programs again with builders and in public-private partnerships.
Thank you. Tracey Breazeale.
When we look at the housing situation, we need to increase, I think that we need to increase housing at all prices. We need to increase affordable housing at our entry price levels. We also need to be increasing it at all price levels. To do this, we need to be working to increase our supply. We've got to be working with our builders in ways to decrease costs so that we can produce homes less expensively. The state can help in some ways with bonding, some incentives. We also I'm also in favor of assisting those who are looking to buy or rent homes with reduced loans for lower income purchasers or first-time buyers, and looking to lock in interest rates at a lower rate for first-time or first-gen buyers.
All right, thank you. All right, question. What what legislation, if any, would you support to address climate change and its effects on Minnesota? Tracey Breazeale.
Well, Minnesota, thankfully, Minnesota has been at the forefront of much of what's been going on in climate change. We have a clean energy to be 100% carbon neutral by 2040, which is a wonderful, wonderful goal. We need to continue to be working towards that. I think that we should be, we can provide incentives to continue our work in solar and wind, and continue to build out our electric grid so that we have more opportunities for people to be driving electric cars, which will do a lot towards helping to move us towards carbon neutral.
All right, Andrew Myers.
Yeah, addressing it at an energy level is something that we really need to think about, for our environment, for climate change. Nuclear is an option, and I work with several people, on the other side of the aisle about that, and they're supportive, but it's looking at the ways to how do we dispose of that. We need to do some research, more research and development, and how we're going to look at that next step of utilities or energy that we have to invest in to find those opportunities. And it's also small things. I mean, that's a big thing when you come to energy, but it's taking care of our environment overall. If it's cleaner water, I chief authored a bill called the Keep It Clean Bill, and it enforces, all our litter laws now on our waters. So it's protecting, from the boundary waters to Lake Minnetonka to help keep our water clean now for the future. It's things like that we can continue to do, phosphorus reduction, things like that we can really implement in some of these programs that I think we should look at, looking at more at a local level as well.
All right, this will be the last question, and I'll go first to Mr. Myers. Were there any questions that you felt should have been asked and weren't answered, or any issues that weren't addressed that you'd like to address?
Oh, man. That's a big question. I would say affordability is probably one of the biggest things that we've seen across the spectrum. I know we touched on it briefly, but Minnesotans are hurting right now, and suburban families are hurting. I hear it every single day. The opportunity was there for us to invest half that surplus, but also look at meaningful ways to make things more affordable for some of the childcare stuff that we put together, some of just the everyday costs. It's impacting our seniors. It's impacting, I'm hearing stories of people saying, I'm not going to be able to build relationships with my grandparents because they're going to be moving. We've got to look at that stuff from property taxes, everything else, because if Minnesota is the best place to raise a family, that also includes our seniors.
Tracey Breazeale.
One area that I think that we need to continue to make progress on is our gun safety laws. We have an epidemic in the country where gun violence, death by gun violence, whether it be suicide or otherwise, is now the #1 killer of children across the United States. This is something that we need to take seriously. We will never be able to keep guns out of the hands of everybody who shouldn't have them. That is a fact. But we do need to continue to strengthen our legislature to do the best that we can for our children. I'm glad that universal checks and extreme risk protection orders were passed in the last legislative session. I think that there is more that we need to do in this arena. I think that we should be looking at how do we keep guns out of the hands of young people and people who should not have them by through either safe storage or biometric methods of triggers or what have you, and requiring guns to be reported when they're lost and stolen.
All right, thank you. That's the end of the rotating questions, and I'll now call on each candidate for their closing statement, and we'll begin with Tracey Breazeale. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us tonight, and thanks to all of you for attending. I'm running for the Minnesota House because I really do believe that it's critical right now for us to protect our rights and well-being at the state level, including the freedom to decide whether or when to start a family, the opportunity to receive a quality education, the ability to secure a well-paying job, and the right to live in a safe and welcoming community free from gun violence and discrimination. I was born in Minnesota and spent most of my life here. I lived in St. Louis Park and and Excelsior. I've lived abroad. I've lived in a number of other states. And my husband Jeff and I chose to come back to Minnesota. I'm sure for all of the same reasons that you guys live here. It's a great place to raise a family, and we do hope to stay here for quite some time. I do believe that we all have much more in common than what separates us, and my conversations with neighbors over the past few months has confirmed this. I've heard very similar things no matter whose door I've been at. I've been hearing from people that, we all know life has gotten more expensive, and I've heard from neighbors how important it is for us to bring down the costs of healthcare, housing, and childcare. Parents and grandparents talk about wanting their children and grandchildren to receive a strong education and gain the skills they need to pursue their passions for a successful career. We all want to feel safe at home and in our communities. We want to be free from gun violence, and we want our police and firefighters to have the personnel, the training, and the support they need to fight crime and protect our communities. Many people have talked about how much they value our lakes, parks, and outdoor areas, and I've heard firsthand from many of you how important it is that we protect our environment. Infrastructure we've talked about a lot, and last but not least, women and the men that care about them want the freedom to be trusted to make their own reproductive health care decisions. If elected, you can trust me to work on these and other issues for the betterment of all in our community. I'm someone you can trust to listen to you and to represent the people of District 45A. I will vote in the best interest of our entire community. I'm Tracey Breazeale, and I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you. Andrew Myers.
Yeah, as your current state representative, I've taken this job very seriously. I mean, I've had 20 town halls. I've made this about the priorities of the community. It's about finding common ground through balanced solutions. If your solutions are too far over here, you've left all these people out. If they're too far over here, you've left all these people out. That led me to, start a group called the Suburban Solutions Caucus. Call us more moderate, call us more pragmatic, but we're there to find common ground. And you heard about a lot of those initiatives that we put together in those plans. Those were things that we put together with the help of boots on the ground, educators, law enforcement. Down at the Capitol, it can be frustrating because there's not a lot of humility from a lot of legislators. They don't come back and talk to their teachers, talk to law enforcement, and say, how is this stuff going to impact you? I know I just got over 9,000 doors, and people want us working together. I'm trying hard down there not only to find a space for me and other Republicans, but also for other Democrats to be able to stand up and vote for their community and step outside of what their party's doing. That is something we need more of here. I think we saw that more and more. I think Representative Jean Pawlowski just commented on that. People are yearning for that balance. I'm going to continue to do my best to represent every single person. I literally park my truck and I hit a minimum of 50 doors, and it's every single door. because I want to know the priorities of everybody in this district, because we love this district. We're all here because we love this area. So I would ask for your vote this November.
Thank you. All right, bear with me, I have a closing statement also. This concludes the House 45A Candidate Forum. We close with several thank yous. First, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, please join me in thanking the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and being willing to serve our community. Thank you also to the League of Women Voters volunteers, our audience here, and those viewing this event virtually for your participation in this forum. Thank you to the City of Mound's staff for supporting this event and for recording tonight's forum. On-demand viewing can be accessed at lwvwpa.org. For additional election information, we encourage you to visit vote411.org. The League of Women Voters award-winning one-stop shop where voters can register to vote, find their polling place, and learn how candidates stand on various issues. Please remember to vote on November 5th election by absentee ballot or in person. On the November ballot, Minnesota voters will be asked to reauthorize or end a constitutional amendment allocating 40% of state lottery proceeds to the Environmental and Natural Resources Trust Fund. Over 50% of voters must vote yes to approve the constitutional protection of the system. If you leave the question blank, it counts as a no vote. So please be sure to look for that amendment and understand, what you're being asked to vote on. Early voting begins this Friday, September 20th. Your vote is your voice. LWV welcomes new members, both women and men, at lwvwpa.org. Thank you and good night.